Hello crafty friends, this is Paper Play with Julie K, and today I will be discussing and comparing glues and adhesives for junk journals. And today I'm here to talk a little bit about glue and what type of glues you should be using in your junk journals, or just even comparing glues and what they're used for. And so this past year I have been kind of compiling different samples of glues in my collection and how they work in a junk journal. And here I have a signature that I haven't done anything with. It just I glued down different pieces, and then I took notes on the type of glue that I use on each page. And so my hope is in future years I can go back and see how all of these are holding up. But I see a lot of different questions in different groups, and I get a lot of questions on my YouTube channel from different people about what types of glues I'm using. And so I thought I would just kind of share a little bit of my knowledge about glues. And I do have quite a bit of different types of glues in my stash. I have been a paper crafter for over 20 years, so I've compiled quite a few different types of glues, and I have some glues that are kind of my go-to glues, and then also glues that I use just for specific things. But the one thing that I can share with you guys that's the most important about any type of glue, that when you're going out and buying or even just looking at what you have in your stash, is that you make sure you read the label, because you can find out so much information about the label of your different glues and what the glue is made for and what it can be used with. So if you're having issues with your glue not working for a particular reason, you might want to read your label, because you might find out that your glue isn't meant for that, to be gluing down that item. So that was the most important thing that I wanted you guys to walk away with from watching this video, is making sure that you are reading your labels of your glues. And so the first glue that I want to talk about today is, I have them all sitting here next to me on the table. But the first one I wanted to talk about is Liquitex Matte Medium, and this is a professional one. There are other brands out there, I know, like Golden and some of the other brands that sell to mixed media artists. There are other matte mediums out there, so this isn't the only brand. This just happens to be the brand that I have easy access to. I buy it most of the time at Hobby Lobby or Michael's, and then I'll use my 40% off coupon. I go through quite a bit of this in a year, so I do like to buy the bigger bottles, but you can buy it in a smaller size. And this type of glue is, you can also use it for some mixed media stuff, but it works well for if you're doing collages, or even if you are gluing napkins to tags or to pages in your junk journals. And so that's what I use it for in the junk journal world, is gluing my napkins is my number one thing, and then also sometimes as a collage, if I'm gluing a whole bunch of different pieces together on a cover or on a page, I'll use it. But what's nice about this one is it's a matte finish, so it's not glossy or reflective. You can mix it with acrylic paint if you want it to have a little bit of color to it, but they recommend not mixing it with oil. You can thin it with water, but I've never done that before for what I use it for. And the other thing that I like about this is it's permanent. I've never had, once I've glued with this and it's stuck down really well, I've never had anything come up again. And it's also non-yellowing, so as the years go by, it's not going to turn yellow, which is something I really like about it. And so you guys can see on this page right here, and I just did this early this year in 2018, just because I hadn't used this glue in this journal yet when I was going through it, trying to decide if I was ready to do a video on it or not. I did use it as a glue for a napkin, so I just cut around a napkin piece and glued it down, and you can see it's holding really well. So that's my main purpose for using it again. So I wanted to share that with you guys. That was kind of my go-to glue for when I glue down napkins, is that matte medium glue. And that's most of the time what I use it for in my junk journals. The other type of glue that I wanted to talk about is Mod Podge, just because so many people talk about it in some of the Facebook groups. A lot of people use it. And I have used it in the past, but I will tell you that I have not used this glue in several years. It's still just sitting in my stash. The only reason why now I would even pull it out is if I'm doing crafts with my nieces and nephews who are young kids. If we're working on like a canvas frame or something, I might pull this out just because it's cheaper than the matte medium. It's very similar consistency to the matte medium that I just showed you guys. But I'll tell you guys why I do not like this glue at all. First of all, it is, if you read the description, it is a water-based sealer. It's glue, and it says it's a finish, but I would never use this as a finish. And the reason why is I have had issues with this sticking to pages. So if I were to like put this over like this napkin right here, and then I had another page over it, maybe in a year, if I hadn't opened up this journal page, those two pages would almost be sticking together because it's very tacky. Especially if you live in high humidity areas or have seasons where you live, like where I live right now. In the summer, it gets really hot and humid, and then I find that it gets even more tacky when it's humid out. So I did read this, because I did look at this right before I filmed and wrote a little bit of note on the back side of this one about it, that I thought was interesting, because I actually had never read the back of this label that I learned, which might talk a little bit about this tackiness that I know a lot of people have had issues. And it does say on the label that to eliminate the tackiness, you need to apply a clear acrylic sealer over it. So once you've used this, like if you were to use it with your napkins, you would then need to put another sealer over it. So that's, you know, a little bit of extra work. And then it also said in the directions when I was reading it, that if you are using several layers of this on your collaging or your gluing, that they recommend that you use sandpaper and sand it in between applications when it's dry. And then at the very end, you'd want to polish with steel wool. So that might help with some of the tackiness too that some of you guys are experiencing. But that seems like a lot of work for me. So I would just go ahead and recommend this glue over this one. This one is going to cost a little bit more, but again, you can use your coupons at Hobby Lobby and Michael's. I don't remember how much this one is, so I don't see the price tag on it, so sorry about that. But again, I personally don't like this one. This one's just been sitting in my collection for quite a few years. I haven't even opened it up. I'm not sure if I could even get the cover open. The next glue that I want to talk about then is Eileens Tacky Glue, which is this glue right here. And on a lot of my pages here, I have wrote down the type of glue. And then as I use it on different things, I've been writing yes, whether it works, or no, it doesn't work, if I've been feeling like I want to experiment with the glue. And then on the back sides, I tried to write down the description or any pertinent information off of the labels. So on the Eileens Tacky Glue, it says it's ultra strong, it dries clear, and it's non-toxic. So it's kind of an all-purpose adhesive glue, and it is one of my go-to glues I use in a lot of different paper crafting, not only journal making, but I use it in my cards. I use it to glue down. As you can see up here, I did try it out and I glued down lace along the edge, which I do. This is usually the glue I use for gluing down laces and trims in my journals. So I also glued here, I glued down this pocket, I glued down the little die cut of the girl, and there's some lace behind her that I glued down, a little bit of that. I glued down the butterfly, and I also glued down the button. That was kind of my experiment thing. I'd never used this glue before in gluing down plastic or heavier items, and I have to say it's still holding, so I was kind of impressed with that because I had never tried that before. But again, this one is kind of one of my favorite all too basic glues if you're gluing paper to paper or even lace to paper. I like this glue, and it's what I like about it is it's cheap, and here in America you can find it pretty much anywhere that sells craft supplies. I can find it at Walmart, I can find it at Hobby Lobby, I can find it at Michael's, I can find it at my local craft store or scrapbooking store. So you can find it pretty much anywhere. The next glue that I want to talk about is, I have to look at my notes here. The other glue that I tried, that I bought maybe a year ago because I saw a few people using it and they said they liked it for their journals, and so I decided to try it. And it's Eileens Clear Gel Tacky Glue, and that's what it looks like. And I still have my, it was $2.47 at Hobby Lobby was the cost of that. And this one is, it's an okay glue. It does dry clear and it goes on strong, or somewhat strong. Not as strong, I don't think, as the other Eileens glue. The one thing that when I read the back of the description on this one is, it says you are supposed to press your pieces together when you glue it down, and then you can clean it up with water. And it does say that it's not intended for fabric. So I didn't even try and use it with fabric because the directions specifically saying it, don't use it with fabric. So I didn't try it with any trims because of that reason. The one thing I did try, because it did say that it was supposed to be a strong glue, is I did, initially when I did this page right here, I did glue on, because I was trying to glue on buttons or else these flat back pearls on a lot of my pages just to see how they would hold. And so I did originally glue 4 of these into each corner. And as you can see, I created this journal last year. I started it in 2017, and all 4 of them have fallen off. So this glue does not work well with plastic. So it wouldn't work well with buttons and those flat back pearls, so it probably wouldn't work well with charms or heavier items, but it does seem to be holding really well with paper. So paper to paper, this glue works great. So that would probably be all I would use it for. So when this glue's gone, I probably will choose not to buy any more of it. I'm just going to keep on buying that other Eileens Tacky glue because I prefer that, because it seems to be working better, because I can use that this one on the fabric and the lace, and it adheres fine. But I thought I would talk about this one just because a few people do use it. But again, it works good for gluing. You can see I glued the belly band down. I glued, it's kind of a double belly band here, right here too, that both are sticking. I glued this down with the same tacky, clear tacky glue. The next glue that I want to talk about that I tried is Elmers Glue All, because I do know a lot of people use Elmers glue. And I know that there's a school version and also this all-purpose glue all, and that's what I had, so that's what I tried. It does say it's extra strong formula and it dries fast. I thought that this was really runny glue compared to the tacky glue, so a little bit of this I think goes kind of a long way. I didn't like it for that reason, is that it was really runny, but in a pinch I think it'll work great if you're gluing paper to paper. So I did try it here. You can see I glued this little bottom tuck spot here. I glued that down on my page. It's still holding. I glued the eyelash trim behind the butterfly, and that's still holding. And then I glued the butterfly onto the tuck spot. I also, at the top here, did glue some lace trim down at the top because I wanted to see how it was working. And as you can see, I also glued down some of those flat back pearls, and one of them just fell off here as I was talking to you guys. So it does not hold. I did glue 3 down originally, so now 2 out of the 3 are no longer there. So I wouldn't recommend using that type of glue for gluing down buttons and flat back pearls and charms and anything that are heavier items. I wouldn't recommend using the Elmer's glue, but it works great for paper to paper. And the other nice thing about that glue is it is cheap. So, and again, you can find it readily pretty much anywhere. So if you're just starting out and that's the only glue you have, and you're just starting out with gluing paper to paper, it works great. I don't have any issues with that, and it does seem to be holding well with gluing down the little trim that I glued down up here. It does feel a little bit stiffer than the Eileens Tacky glue from this page, but it does seem to be holding. But like I said, it doesn't seem to work very well with the flat back pearls, which means, and that one just fell off right now too. So all 3 of them have fallen off. So it probably wouldn't work on buttons either. So, but a basic glue for paper to paper, the Elmer's glue seems to be working well. So let's see, on this page, let me find the glue that I worked with. I did use Scotch Quick Dry Adhesive, which is this one. And I have this in my paper, or my glue stash, because I like this glue. I used to make a lot of paper flowers that were layered up with different die cuts that I have in my collection. And what I liked about this one is it dried really fast. So that's why I use this one, and then it had the really small nozzle at the end, which was also nice, just to get it in the middles of all those different paper flowers that I was creating. But I did decide to try with this glue, since I had it in my stash. I did glue some paper onto paper, so I glued the little page flags down up here. And then I also went ahead and glued some lace trim down. And I also went ahead and glued down some flat back pearls on top of the lace trim, and it's still holding. So it's holding better than that Eileens clear tacky glue, and holding better than the Elmers glue that I just showed you guys. And here I'm kind of playing with it a little bit, and it doesn't seem to be coming off. So that was something new that I had tried with this glue that I hadn't done before. So I was kind of impressed with that. And the description on the back of this bottle right here, it just says that it bonds to paper in less than 1 minute, so I agree with that. And then it says to allow more dry time for attaching metal and plastic embellishments. And so when I had read the description that it did work with metal and plastic embellishments, that's why I tried the little flat back pearls. And it's still working, so I'm happy with that. So this would also be another nice glue to use in your journals, I think, for basic gluing down paper. The embellishments seem to be working, and also the lace trim. I don't currently own any fabric, so I wasn't able to try fabric in my journal. I don't have a sewing machine or anything, so I can't really answer those questions about the fabric. Let's see, my next glue that I used was another glue I hear a lot of people talk about, and I did pick this one up for a particular reason, and I'll tell you guys. It's called Crafter's Pick, and it's called the Ultimate. I can find it at Hobby Lobby, and it's $6 for this one, and it's 8 US fluid ounces, so that's the size of it. And I know a lot of people in the junk journal world do use this glue. I do hear people talking about it, so I did go ahead and try it with paper to paper, and it's holding. It works good. It's holding down my butterfly. The paper that I use, it's holding down the trim that I glued down here, and it's holding down the flat back pearls. So the reason why I originally purchased this glue was because I do make pocket letters, which, if you guys know, pocket letters are those plastic sleeves. And I wanted some sort of glue that would work on the outside of the plastic that would hold things, like hold flat back pearls, hold trims, hold different things, because I was having a hard time. And I was trying my hot glue gun, and everything was falling off, or else it was melting the plastic. So that's why I bought this, and it works great on my pocket letters. And I also use it now to glue down a lot of plastic items or bead trim on things. And I've been using this if I'm patient, even when I do like bead trim, instead of using my hot glue gun, because this seems to hold things more permanent than, like, let's say a hot glue gun. Sometimes your bead trims fall off when you use the hot glue gun. So I really like this glue. And again, you can use it with paper too, so I do like that too. See, the next glue that I tried is one that my local craft store sells, and it's called Artsy Collage, Decoupage, and Collage Gel. So it's kind of like a gel consistency. It's seems kind of similar to the tacky glue a little bit. But this one does say that it adheres paper to metal, plastic, glass. You can adhere things to candles, ceramics, and more. It dries clear. It's acid-free, non-toxic, and when it's wet, it's still repositionable. And so I decided to go ahead and try it because it's something I've had in my stash for a long time. Like I said, my local craft store sells it, and I think I originally bought it to use in some different like mixed media collage things because it was acid-free. And so I did decide to try it and glue down. I did glue down both of these pockets in the corner with it. And I also glued down the little lace trim on the edges and the buttons, and they're all holding very nicely. So it seems like a really nice glue, so it'd be one I would recommend using in your junk journals if you have have that available to you. Let's see, the next type of glues I decided to try were some that were specifically made for fabrics. And I just got to find them here on my table here. So the first type of glue that I tried right here is Eileens Fabric Fusion. That's what it looks like. And I was able to buy this, I think, either at Hobby Lobby or Michael's, and maybe even Walmart carries it too. So what's nice about this glue, in the description it does say it's permanent fabric adhesive, so you could use this like on your clothing to glue things. It just recommended pre-washing your garment. And it just said to apply an even coat of glue to fabric or embellishments, press down if needed, hold in place with tape or pins if you need to, and you need to let it dry 2 to 4 hours. And if you're using it on items that you're washing, it's washable after 48 hours. So one of the reasons why I decided to buy this is if my Eileens glue wasn't working on laces and trims, I wanted another type of glue in my stash that I could use with trims. And so I just glued down the trim here on the side and made it into a pocket. And it's still holding very nicely. It did dry clear. I can still kind of see though where my glue is. But I do like this glue and I do use it a lot when I glue trims onto my covers. I haven't tried it yet with any like flat back pearls, so I will probably go ahead and try that eventually just to see how it holds, just because the description does say you can use it for embellishments, so I'd be curious to see how that holds up. And the other type of glue that I have that's made for fabric that I purchased that I heard a lot of people use is Tack by Beacon. This one is nice because it does have a fine tip at the top. So I do like that it has a finer tip. And I did already actually wrote kind of a little bit of a note to myself on the top because I did use this glue once and have an issue with it. And that was on one of my junk journals I created. I used it on a cover and I was gluing down this specific lace to this paper. And I don't know if you can tell on the camera, but it turned it like a really bright pink underneath there. And I didn't like that because it bled a little bit. And so I just wrote that little note on here and kind of did a sample just so I'd remember. And I don't know if it's just there is something in this glue that reacted with this paper is what I'm thinking, because I haven't had this issue with a lot of my paper, just this specific paper from Bo Bunny. Excuse me. I do use it to glue down trims in my journals, and so I glued it using the burlap, and then I also went ahead and tried it on buttons, and as you can see it's holding them very nicely. So I would recommend using this for fabric. Again, I would still choose to use my Eileens tacky glue for gluing paper to paper just because it's cheaper than buying this type of glue. But if you're gluing down some sort of fabric or having issues with your lace, I think this glue would work good. Or like I said, it worked good with the burlap, and it even worked with the buttons on the burlap, so I was happy with that. It's nice to know that I have a couple different glues in my stash that will work with flat back pearls and buttons. The next type of glue that I wanted to talk about that some people use as a glue in a pinch is Glossy Accents. It's by Ranger. And there's also another brand out there, an older brand, called Diamond Glaze, that's pretty much exactly the same thing. They do the exact same thing. I just happen to have this in my stash from, it's probably 10, 15 years old, but it does the same thing as the Glossy Accents. Most people use it to add over images in their journals. Like here I did it on the butterfly, so I add some shine to it. And then also I added the flat back pearls in the middle of it. So that's usually what I would use my Glossy Accents for when I'm gluing down some of those paper flowers and putting in flat back pearls in the middle of them. I will often use Glossy Accents, but now that I came across that Crafter's Pick, that'll probably be my go-to glue now for gluing down the little plastic flat back pearls, just because I think this one works so nice. And this is expensive for what you get. So I will just continue just to use the Glossy Accents just items in my journals that I want to stand out. It does take a long time to dry also with that one. But I just wanted to talk about it since I had that in my stash. The next type of glues that I want to talk about are glue sticks. And so in my stash I do have this Scotch craft stick. And I also have this Yoo-Hoo brand, which I really like this one, but I have a hard time finding it anymore. So I haven't used a glue stick in a long time. Most of the time, the only thing you're going to be able to use your glue sticks for are gluing paper to paper. But I can tell you that being a long time paper crafter, I used to use this when I first started crafting, when I made hand stamped cards, and I would glue a card layer to another card layer using glue sticks. And I can tell you after 20 years, some of those cards are falling apart. So it's just something to think about if you're creating journals and you're using glue sticks, that 20 years from now, some of your pieces might fall out, just so you guys are aware of that. Now the only reason why I pretty much would use, or the only reason why I even use the glue sticks is if I'm creating a hand stamped card for someone that's kind of a throwaway card. If I know I'm giving it to someone and they're probably not even going to keep it, they're going to throw it away after I send them a thank you. That's about the only reason why I use the craft glue sticks, and I haven't even purchased any for several years. These ones are both probably 5-6 years old, these craft glue sticks. But I wanted to talk about them because I do hear people talking about them. So I did glue one of my butterflies down in the corner using, I think, that Scotch craft stick. So again, if I revisit this journal again in 5-10 years, it'll be curious to see if it's still sticking, because like I said, I do know I have cards that have fallen apart that I created with that type of glue. So the next type of glue that I wanted to talk about is the Zig glue, and I think they also have it in bottles, but it's this two-way glue. Initially it's blue and then it turns clear, I think. And the only reason why I even use this glue is if I am gluing down something detailed like this. It just because it has a fine tip. That's the only reason why I use this, and I only use it for paper to paper. But it works pretty good. Works pretty good for that. I've only been using it for about 6-7 years, and so far nothing has fallen apart as long as I've gotten enough glue on it. It has stayed down. So that's about all I can tell you about that glue. It does say it's acid free. The other glue that I like for gluing down intricate dies, like right here, is this type of glue, which is the Adhesive Tack fine line glue. It has a really nice fine tip. And so I do use that glue for gluing down, just like up here, intricate dies. And I can find it for 99 cents at Tuesday Morning, but everywhere else it's like $2 to $3 at the other hobby stores like Michael's or Hobby Lobby. But I wanted to talk about that. That's the only reason why I use those glues, is just for gluing down intricate dies. The next type of tape or glue or adhesive I'd like to talk about is actually tape. And so here are some different samples of double-sided tape. And I'm going to go through and talk about the ones that I know about. As you can see here, I just taped down some different strips of paper with different tapes because I want to see how they hold up over the years, just out of curiosity. Some of them I kind of already know. The first type of tape I want to talk about are these runner type tapes. And honestly, I would stay away from using any of these types of tapes in your junk journals. I have used these in the past for my card making, and they work great to put together a quick card. But over the years, your paper layers will fall apart. So the only thing that these will even work on is paper. But again, over the years, your paper is going to come apart off of the paper. So I don't even use these unless I'm making like a quick throwaway card that I know that the person isn't going to be keeping. These are ones that receive from in Happy Mail or in packages. Sometimes when you order stuff online, they'll send you a free tape runner. So that's where these have come from. Another type of tape that a lot of people use look like this. It's double-sided. And when you open it up, it's sticky on this side, and then you have to peel off the top layer to get it sticky on the other. So that's kind of nice when you're taping things down. There's a company out there called Score Tape, which I believe the majority of people use. That's an awesome tape. I've used it in the past. I haven't had any issues with it. My stuff has held. My paper that I've used to tape together has held with that. I'm not able to find it locally, so I don't have any of it left to show you guys. But that would probably be my number one tape like this to go to, would be the Score Tape. Locally, I'm able to find a brand called Express It. You can kind of see it in there. And this one's pretty close to the Score Tape. I haven't had any issues with it yet so far. It just doesn't seem quite as strong as the Score Tape. I know a lot of people use that Score Tape when they're making their mini albums, and I created a mini album last year for a design team project, and I used a combination of this Express It tape and then also the red line tape, and so far both of those are holding very nicely with lots of use and opening them up. So this was the first tape. The other one that I've tried lately is from American Crafts. Some of you guys have heard of that American Craft brand. And this one I picked up. It was really cheap at Hobby or at Tuesday Morning, so I picked it up because I wanted to try it. And I have to tell you guys, I don't like this one. First of all, it's hard to take off the top layer, but it just does not seem to hold as well as that Score Tape or that Express Tape that I've used in the past. I don't like it. The other type of tape that I like is this red line tape. Some people call it Wonder Tape. I know way back when I first started rubber stamping, you could actually buy it in big sheets that were like 8.5 by 11. And people would use it on one side. They would put like glitter or micro powders, those kind of things on it. It is heat resistant, so it's very nice if you tape it down to something and you put something on top of it. You can heat it and it's not going to bubble like a lot of tapes do. So it's very strong, very durable tape. It is expensive though. It's more expensive than buying this type of tape. But if I were to do some sort of project that I wanted to be permanent and long lasting, this would probably be the number one tape I would go with. The next tape would be that Score Tape that I talked about, and behind that Score Tape, the Express It tape runs a pretty close second. Then the other type of tape that I just purchased not too long ago from Tuesday Morning it looks exactly like the other tape, but it came from a company called Home Hobby by 3L Consumer Products, and it says it's premium double-sided tape. It does seem to be better than the American Craft tape, but it still does not seem to be as strong as the Express It tape. But I'm a little bit more happy with this one versus that American Crafts brand. So if I were making a quick card or something, I might use this. But if I were creating anything at all in my junk journal and using tape, I would highly recommend sticking with that Score Tape or the red line tape. But honestly, when it comes to junk journals, I just stick with glue, because I feel like 20 years from now, for the most part, your pages will still be sticking if you're using a good quality glue. But I just wanted to go over the tape. And the other type of tape that I do use once in a while in my card making is this Scotch 3M tape, and this does pretty good. I still have cards from 15, 20 years ago that are still holding that I use this tape on. So it seems like it's a decent tape. The next type of adhesive I'd like to talk about real quick is just like the foam dots or the 3M foam tape. It adds a little bit of dimension to your projects when you use, I know a lot of people will use it to pop up their butterflies, to pop up their flowers, just even to pop up some of their die cuts. in their junk journals. And my only recommendation is, if you're going to use any type of pop-up dots or the foam tape, is that you add glue to both sides, because in the long run, sometimes this type of tape does lose its tackiness a little bit, and it'll not adhere as well. So I'll just use some of this Crafter's Pick Ultimate Glue to use with this if I'm using it in a junk journal, just to make sure that it stays for years to come. Or else I also just use tacky glue and find that that works well too. So any type of glue will probably work with the foam tape, but I just wanted to mention that just because I have had cards in my card making career that have that I've used the foam tape or the pop-up dots that have fallen apart over the years, but I found that if I use a little bit of glue, they don't fall apart. So I just wanted to mention that real quick. And then the next type of glue that I want to talk about is E6000 glue. And I just have some journals here that I have used E6000 glue. And I did write a card on this one, but I can't find it sitting on my desk here. But this is a clear glue. It's an industrial strength glue. It kind of has a little bit of a smell to it. When it is dry, it is flexible, so you can move things about, or like move, if you were to glue it on a page or something, it's bendable. But again, this is an industrial strength glue. This works really good. The reason why I use this glue is if I want to glue on something heavier onto my journal. So for example, here's a journal that I created, and I used it to glue on this heavy charm. It's one of those Downton Abbey charms, and it is heavier metal, and I used it to glue it down, and it's still holding very nicely. And I also used the glue for this Halloween journal right here. I used it to glue down all the wood frames, the metal in the background, this metal piece right here. This is loose, but I used it to glue down this piece, the skull, the frame, the metal frame, that, and the butterfly right here. And they're holding nicely. The one thing like about this is once you use it, you do need to let whatever you've used it on dry for 24 hours. I probably wouldn't be using this glue to glue paper to paper, but it works nice if you're gluing down a heavier metal embellishment, a heavier frame. It would work good on your buttons or your flat back pearls. But again, it does take 24 hours to dry. So I'm more apt on those smaller items like the buttons and the flat back pearls to use this Ultimate Glue, or even that Glossy Accents for the smaller things. But I do like to use this glue on heavier things like that. So I wanted to talk about that real quick. The next type of adhesive or glue that I would like to talk about is Golden Gel Medium glue. There are other brands like Liquitex will have a gel medium out. It is a thicker looking glue. And mostly people use this in their like mixed media art. They'll use it in stencils. They'll use it to add texture to their canvases. Like with a palette knife, you can add like peaks and texture. You can add paint to it to change the color to it. But once in a great while, I have found this to be helpful as a glue. I've seen mixed media artists glue small embellishments onto their canvas with it. And the only time I've ever used it on a junk journal was when I created this by the sea looking one that I did for a design team project, and I used it to glue on the lobster. And the reason why I chose this instead of that E6000 glue instead of this glue was because this glue, when you use it, it does a little bit, goes a long way, and if you use too much, it'll leak out and it'll spread. And the problem that I was having with this piece of jewelry, which it's a pin, and so it does have a pin back that I was not able to cut off, is that this lobster isn't flat. It has kind of a curve to it, and it sits up like this a little bit on the side. And so I was trying to think of how I could actually glue this guy down onto my page. And so what I ended up doing is sliding the pin back kind of behind this piece of cardstock that I have, and I put this golden gel medium behind the piece of jewelry, just because it's thicker than the E6000 glue, and it doesn't spread. It stays pretty much where you put it. And so I just filled up a pretty heavy amount on the back side of this pin, and it's holding really nice. I mean, this thing is not going anywhere. So in rare occasions, I think this type would be very helpful on some 3D items when you're gluing them onto the cover. I probably wouldn't use it on the inside of my journal unless I was like stenciling and wanting to have raised images with my stencil as a kind of a stencil type paste. It would work good for that. But I just wanted to talk about that in case someone's having issues with gluing some sort of heavier object onto the top of your journals, that this would be a good product to use. And again, there are other brands out there. This just happens to be the one that I have in my stash. The next type of glue I want to talk about is rubber cement. I don't have any, I don't own any still, but I still hear once in a while people using it. And so I did dig out from my stash of cards from like 20 years ago. What happens with rubber cement is it works really good right away. It has a little bit of an odor and it stinks. It works for adhering paper to paper. When I first started scrapbooking, that was at the time the type of glue that everybody used. But I have to tell you, I don't like rubber cement, and I will never use it again for anything other than maybe if you're gluing stuff with a kid. But here's why. Everything falls apart. You can see this card that I made this is a card from 20 years ago that I created. You can see where the glue was, but it's no longer holding. It does kind of turn a yellow color, but this layer was here and it's no longer. And then also on this tag, the item has started coming up also from a card. So I just wanted to tell you guys, for those of you that are using the rubber cement as glue, for any type of paper craft, I'd probably not use it, because eventually it's going to fall apart like this. I mean, tape. I have cards from 20 years ago that I used tape like this that are holding better than the rubber cement. So I just wanted to show you guys that and talk real quick about the rubber cement. Again, I don't have any samples of what it looks like because I don't even own it anymore in my stash. Then the other type of glue I want to talk about is hot glue guns. In the junk journal world, I know a few people do use them on your covers of your junk journals. Here I have a just a composition notebook that I did use glue on the cover. And I also used some E6000 glue too. But I used the hot glue to glue down my bead trim along the edges. And so far it's holding, but I can tell you guys that probably in another 5 years, I don't know if this hot glue will be holding. Some projects that I've made with hot glue, eventually stuff can be pulled up quite easily with the hot glue. So once I found this product right here, this Ultimate Crafter's Pick, because it works good on plastic, if you're patient enough, you know, the hot glue, what's nice about it is it dries fast once you put it down, and you can glue stuff pretty fast. But if you're patient enough, you can glue down all of these bead trims with this type of glue. And I did use this glue right here, this Ultimate glue, when I glued down these bead trims, and they're holding really nice. I just was patient enough to let them dry for quite a while once I used this glue. But I can tell you, if I were to pull up some of this teardrop trim on the side of this, I think it would fall off, and I don't want to do that because I really like the cover of this. But for the most part, I'm starting to not use as much hot glue just because I have had bead trims fall off of covers. I've had stuff fall apart, you know, so I would only maybe use this sometimes still in some of my paper, like if I'm making paper rosettes or things like that and need it to dry pretty fast. The last type of adhesive or glue that I'd like to talk about is this gloss medium and varnish. It's from Liquitex. There are other companies out there like Golden and some of the other mixed media companies that sell similar products. I do like to buy mine from Michael's or Hobby Lobby, and then I use my 40% off coupon, and I do buy them in the larger containers. So the main purpose that I use this for is kind of a protective coat on the covers of my junk journals, especially if I'm doing lots of like decoupage type layers on my covers or different paper collages. I like to do this, and it protects it from, once it dries, from it's water resistant, so if you were to drop some water on it or something, you could easily wipe it up and not have to worry about it interacting with your cover. But if you look at the label of this one, it says it can be used as a final non-removable varnish for acrylic paintings, also for your journals. It's an excellent binder and has adhesive qualities to it. It dries clear, it is glossy, it's permanent, non-yellowing, it's flexible and water resistant when it dries. You can mix it with acrylic colors or paints. You can add a little bit of water to it if you need to. And then it also recommends that if continuous overbrushing may result in fogging after drying, so that's kind of something that's important, is not to do too much brushing when you're putting it on your journal. And then just overall, you can use it for glazing, as a fixative, a collage adhesive, varnish, binder, or a transfer medium. And again, that's the gloss medium and varnish. And I do have a sample. Most of my journals that I've used this on the cover I've given away. But this is my gratitude journal that I did quite a while ago. I do have a video out there of how I used my journal and wrote in it. But I did use this on the cover, so if I were to drop some water because I'm drinking a glass of water or something, I'd be able to wipe it off because it does protect it. And when it says that it's flexible, once I've painted it on, you guys can see I can still bend my cover. This was a file folder cover. It still bends and it's flexible, so I do like that about that type of glue. And again, I just use it as a final coat over whatever I've collaged on my thing, but you could also use it as a glue for your layers. But I usually choose not to do that just because it is a more expensive glue, so I choose to use some of my cheaper glues for while I'm doing my layering, but then for my final protective coat, I do use this. So I did want to share that with you guys. I just wanted to thank everybody for watching my video today. Hopefully I explained a few different types of glues or adhesives that you can possibly use in your junk journals, or at least answered some questions about them. If you guys have any specific questions, please leave them below in the comment section and I will do my best to answer them. By no means am I an expert on every type of glue out there, but I just wanted to share what I knew about some of the current glues that I've used over my paper crafting career. And again, the one main thing I want you guys to all walk away with, no matter what type of glue you are using on your projects or in your junk journals, is that you read the label, because the labels do pretty much tell you what you can use your glues on, whether they're good for paper to paper, or if you can use fabric with them, or laces, or if they work good with embellishments. So again, just make sure you guys sit down and read your labels on your glues, and I hope you all have a wonderful day and happy crafting.